We're recording. Chris, take it away.
All right, gang, let's do some demos this week. We had 2 teams working on 2 new issues and we shipped some new features. So who wants to kick us off?
We can hop in there.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Okay, I will share my screen. And okay, can everyone see the browser?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this week our goal was to create some guidance for the user if their list was empty. So if we click on create a new list, I think right now this error message is showing because we still have some things that are going to be merged. I think Viet and D, once yours is merged, you've kind of dealt with that, so that should go away. So we'll just pretend that's not there for right now. So we see this message to the user that their list is empty, and we have a link to prompt the user to add an item to their list. We got some really great feedback and suggestions about looking into using an anchor tag versus a button, and considerations with accessibility, using semantically accurate tags. And so with some of the resources that we got and the research we did, it seemed like an anchor tag was the most appropriate, because that's what you would use if you're going to another page in the application. Whereas a button would be like to submit a form or to open or close something. And then we also found that it was recommended to not style it to look like a button for accessibility reasons, because then you're making the link look like a button, which sort of negates the purpose of using a link. So if we click on our add an item, it takes us to our form. I've gotten a lot of peanut butter, so we'll get some more peanut butter. And it was brought to our attention that when we actually submit the form, for a brief moment, you can still see the message that the list is empty. We tried to slow this down using the network settings, but we couldn't really get it to slow down enough to see it. It's like a real quick flash. And then we actually will see it if we just refresh the page, and that's a little more noticeable. So we got some feedback about how to go about dealing with that. And Rachel's going to talk about some of the things that were recommended, some of the things that we tried, and kind of what we ended up, or where we ended up.
Thank you, Brittany. Yeah, so we saw that issue and then the feedback on our PR and tried several times, following kind of the information that was given to us to handle that. So initially we were handling it in the list component, but then upon Mike's feedback, we switched to try and do it in the use Firestore hook. And we were setting the state of it and then using a Boolean and true false to show or not show the loading, depending on, what was happening. And it was still flashing, and then it was flashing and it would be still in the prompt component. We would be above it, below it. We couldn't get the behavior to act how you really want the loading. So we tried a couple times, and then we just decided, we've given this a good try. We've met our acceptance criteria. This is something we definitely need to revisit for the app, just in terms of not necessarily functionality, but how it looks and appearance and stuff. So it's definitely something we think we should revisit as a team. And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on was for that error component, which should not be hard coded. We did really like that we were able to use that error component that Brittany and Dee had made last week. And so it really came in handy. That's it.
Nice.
That's like
Good
the
stuff,
third
y'all.
time we've used that. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Any questions? Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, demos are always a fun and frequent time to find and even showcase interesting things that have gone wrong with the application. So, this is all just part of cutting your teeth and learning how to demo, is when your error message shows up through all the demo. And, that's fine. That happens.
Well, and it's funny because we hard coded it so that we could make sure that it actually was working. And then we we're like, didn't we take that out? We're almost positive we took it out, but clearly we did not, because Viet and Dee contacted me this morning and they were like, so this thing keeps showing up. And I was like, oh yeah, we just need to change this. And then I thought we did that. So that was kind of a funny and random thing.
Cool. Yeah, and I also appreciate, y'all just kind of being realistic about the form flashing state. Like, I appreciated that you kind of called out what you tried and some of the difficulties that you ran into. But at the end of the day, sometimes you do just have to call it good enough and keep moving, So in like a more like real world environment, or like in an office setting, you might file another ticket to address that down the road or something like that, which, if you want the practice, feel free to file a GitHub issue for it. I don't think anyone's going to hold you accountable to it, but, feel free.
There's a to-do comment in the code for now, so that could easily,
Boom,
be a
there you
ticket.
go. Cool. Did anybody else have any questions or comments?
Nope,
Great
that's
job.
good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we
Yeah.
do that all the time. Like, you get to a certain state and you're like, okay, this is as done as this is going to be. Right now, it meets what this ticket says, and there's this other issue, and I'm just going to create another ticket for this issue so that I can close this out and move on to something a little fresh. Sometimes it just feels better to have something. Feels a little bit better to have something in a new ticket,
And sometimes you'll get, a reviewer who asks you to go out of scope, like like here. And sometimes you may, as a developer, find that it's really in everybody's best interest if you have the scope, you stick to the scope, and then you create another ticket, so that for testing purposes, it may, a QA department may want to track what was actually added, and they may not then be able to track that kind of a thing. So I think this was really a great real world experience here. So really cool.
All right, great. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our next team here.
Yes. I'm going to share my screen. So for Viet and I's issue, we had to create checkboxes for each list item. And when a user clicks on a checkbox to mark the item as purchased, the last purchase date is updated in the Firebase database. And then once 24 hours passes, the checkbox needs to be unchecked. So I'm just gonna walk through and show you how it's gonna work. So we have our list and say you've gotten your apples. So you check off apples. And then for the purpose of this test, it's just gonna uncheck after 5 seconds, just so you can see it. When you refresh the page, apples has been unchecked. And in the Firebase database, you can see we have the date being sent in milliseconds. And so it's being stored in that type of format. And for the checkboxes, we have a checked attribute for each checkbox that takes in a check purchase date function. And I'm going to pass it off to Viet, and we're going to show you the code so you can better explain how that function works.
Thanks. Yeah, so we start looking at line 9. That's our check purchase date function there, and that's going to return true or false. False means the checked box will be unchecked. True means that it stays checked. Yeah, we're checking for first if the purchase date exists, and if not, the box is unchecked. We're using date.now, which was suggested just to kind of keep a uniform format in milliseconds. Add 1 day, that 86,400,000 milliseconds is equal to 24 hours. We cleaned up the variable names just to make it more understandable for everybody, which I think was really helpful for us. You can see that line 19 is, we're just adding 5 seconds to show you the test. The real code is line 18 that's commented out right now, where we're adding a day, a 24-hour period to the purchase date. Yeah, and then we have the condition at the end, which we kept it as a condition for right now because Dee and I thought that it was more readable for us and maybe for the Rachel and Brittany, who didn't work on this issue, to kind of be able to read it a little bit better. I think both Lauren and Mike had suggested we just return the condition, and I think we tried it and it was just confusing for us to read, so we just kept it as an if else for now, just to make it a little bit easier on us and like I said, for the other team. But yeah, so if what we pull out of today, which would be the timestamp for this moment, is greater than the 24-hour period since the purchase date, then the box gets unchecked.
And one thing that Bea and I found out, and also I think Chris brought it to our attention, if a user were to accidentally check an item off their list and it was like a mistake, as of right now, they're not able to uncheck the box. So in general, we're meeting the acceptance criteria, but it is something that I guess later on we would have to take that into consideration, just to account for if a user just accidentally clicks on one item and they didn't mean to, they're going to want to be able to uncheck that box. But for now, we're pretty happy with what we did. So this is something that we wanted to bring to everybody's attention. And that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions or if they want to see any of the other code, and we can explain that as well.
I just have a quick comment. I really like that, you know, you had that conversation about we could shorten this code and make it more efficient for that if statement, but then also thought about the readability and how it would be for Rachel and I. And so maybe, you know, at some point moving forward, we can shorten it, but it's nice that like we have a chance to look at that and see, okay, this is really clear what's happening there. And now that we understand, maybe in the future, if we want to shorten it, great. So there's that nice, you found that nice balance between efficiency and readability.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, which is just way to think about the intended audience of your code. Personally, according to my own way of reading and writing code, I would have totally given the same feedback that Mike did, but I appreciate that y'all thought about who was going to be reading the code and you interpreted it differently, and that's totally valid. And sometimes in the real world too, you're going to have senior engineers who are just like, oh, but you could do this with bit shifting, and you have to be like, pump the brakes. So
I think those comments are really great because dates are super confusing to work with anyway, but having those step-by-step comments, like this is the value right now, this is what this value is, it's going to be just really helpful for you all going forward. Like I loved how you thought of your whole team when writing this. It's really nice.
definitely. I love it when people leave those kind of comments on time, because I can never look at just a number and be like, ah, yes, that is exactly a 1 week in milliseconds, because I have that memorized.
So I had a question about that because, you know, a lot of the times we'll like clean up comments and take them out before we push or merge. But in this situation, because they are really helpful to have in there, does that happen often where like you will specifically leave in comments like Bea and Dee are doing for us so that in the future, you know, you may not take out every comment in the code, I guess is my question.
I mean, I think that comments are used a lot of the time to help to explain your code, and they're left in intentionally. What you probably take out are things about like the process at that particular time, but would leave in things that help to help them explain what's going on there, because that's not always you try to make self-documenting code, but it's really not always possible or feasible.
You'll find different things on different teams. I've certainly worked on teams in the past that are very, very anti-commenting your code. That's not my preference, but it's nice to have some comments in your code, so you don't always have to strip them out.
Also, way to think ahead of the demo and not make us wait 24 hours to finish the demo. So good job.
Yeah, I mean, I considered like having us come back tomorrow, same time, and taking a look, but.
Good job.
And
Nice.
way to work through dates. Dates are so hard.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah, I
then,
think that's.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think that's why we had the code the way that we had written it initially, because it gave us the actual, human readable string of time, month, day, and all that stuff. And we're like, okay, and we're converting back and forth a lot. And I think just understanding it better now, we're like, all right, that's right. Milliseconds makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, makes sense. You'll be thankful that you have that number value of milliseconds coming into this week for one of this week's issues. It'll be very helpful. Nice. Really excellent demos. Again, this is of the teams that I've mentored, these are the best demos that I've ever seen. Really, really, really top notch. Very, very. All right, cool.
All right.
It is time for retrospective. Let's see, let me share my screen. And can everyone see the retro board?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, let me share the link. If I can find the chat. Cool. I just shared the link to the project board in Slack. So some of us have been adding cards already, and that's great, but let's take, I'll say 7 minutes to, actually, let's do 6. We'll do 6 minutes. And again, we have the column for appreciation, shout outs to your teammates, what you thought went well, maybe this week, week before, or what's been going well overall. And then a column for things that maybe got in the way or things that can be improved going forward. And then we'll take some action items from it. Okay, I will set a timer somewhere for 6 minutes. Okay, I just resumed our recording, and it looks like we're in pretty good shape. So just like we did last time, we'll go through each of the columns, and I'll have everyone read their own card, and we'll just go top to bottom. So let's start with appreciations. And Chris, you're on the top.
All right. For me, it's kind of just more of the same here. Mike and Lauren are really great co-mentors. Lauren especially makes this really easy. So just continuing to give thanks for that. And also great feedback on the PRs. Sometimes there's not a lot for me to say because y'all have already gotten it. So good job.
Nice. Then Viet.
Yeah. I just want to let you all, the mentors, know that I appreciate how much time you all put in each week with us. I mean, outside of your jobs, this is, I mean, it seems like somebody's available all the time. And really have enjoyed the comments and the conversation that takes place in the pull requests. Lauren for being a great leader and stressing the importance of communication and getting the best out of us. Chris for his advice and encouragement. Mike for being super supportive and thinking of the team even during your anniversary getaway. And to my teammates, thanks for the kind words this week to help push us forward throughout the week. D for just being super tenacious and tackling this week's issue. And we had some long Zoom calls where it was, kind of discouraging and seemed unproductive. But when we stepped back and looked at it, it was, we were getting there, taking some small steps, but we eventually got there. Brittany for hopping into the call this morning with us to deal with that error issue, and Rachel, both of you during office hours for just sitting patiently while we were working through the date issue. And yeah, I'm really proud to be part of this group.
Awesome. Dee.
So I wanted to just give a shout out to Viet. This was a really hard issue, and we both got confused a lot along the way with dealing with the date. And I had to have Viet explain himself to me like multiple times, but the whole time he was just like always ready to just like, if I didn't understand something, was more than willing to explain it again and again. And even though he had like other outside duties to perform, like with his school and with other projects that he was dealing with, he was quite determined and quite dedicated to this issue. And he was just working on it like crazy. So I really appreciate that he was just so willing to go above and beyond for this issue, even though he had other things going on. And just thank you to the mentors for offering so much advice, so many resources on this issue. And we had multiple viewpoints. So it was just really helpful to help us just kind of work through this problem. So I really appreciate that.
Cool. Nice. Great.
Yeah, so I just first of all wanted to, I think, repeat what everyone's been saying and thank the mentors. I think that all of you do such an amazing job of this, but I particularly noticed it when we were looking at the NVS issue with Lauren during office hours. Is you're a teammate in a way. You're not telling us what to do. You're walking through it with us. You're guiding us. And I think that that's something I've seen each of the mentors do. We're almost like peers, which of course you're our mentors, you're our seniors, but it's really nice to feel that way during that process of addressing a bug or an issue. And then Chris and Mike, just some of the resources and the code suggestions and the support in the PR this past week. There were some really good things for us to look through. Yeah, indeed, that seemed like such a hard issue, and you just like took it on and did not give up. And I just want to say thank you, because I know that was a tough one to tackle, and you did an amazing job. And then Rachel, this week with our loading issue, anytime I was like, oh, I have this idea, there's this thing I want to try, is that okay? Like, you were just so open and flexible and supportive of me just like trying different things here and there. So I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Oops, sorry, Mike.
Yeah. So one thing, Lauren, you've been really great at being loud in Slack, which I appreciate, and even the outside of the TCL 17 channel. You're kind of like representing us, and that's really really great. And thank you very much for that. You're doing a great job leading the team. Viet and D, I think that you had, as you mentioned, just multiple viewpoints coming in. I think at one point there, Lauren was like, "Oh, you should use this third-party library, and then Mike's like Unix timestamp, and there's and so like sticking to that was really great, and it's really tough to accept criticism, especially when it's coming from all over the place. So that really great job, and I really appreciate the work that he did, and absolutely everyone. I feel like I've been learning a ton from fellow mentors and just everyone on the team with resources that are being shared in the PR comments and just general ideas around things. So just thank you, because I've been learning a lot. Yeah.
Rachel?
I really appreciated Brittany's flexibility this week in scheduling times to work together. And she was really clear in her communication, which really helped. And like she said, but her willingness to try tackling the loading screen multiple times, like, no, we didn't quite get there. It was still good to, just try it out. And then Mike, I really appreciated your continued support and suggestions and trying to help us figure that out.
Yeah, that was awesome. And for me, I had such a good time that office hours this week. It was really fun for all of us to work on that issue together. Really, it was a lot of fun. I just can't thank Mike and Chris enough. It's just been so great mentoring with both of you. You're always so quick to jump in and assist. And I just really know that I can rely on you so much, and I really appreciate it. Brittany and Rachel, thank you for hanging in there during office hours and kind of learning along with us, trying to figure out the dates. Yeah, and it just really felt like this is this group project that we were all working on together. So that was pretty fun. And then Viet and Dee, thank you for sticking to it with that really tricky issue. Like, dates are just a nightmare. They're really hard. That's all there is to it. But the work that you've done is really going to set everyone on the whole team up for success going forward. So good job. All right. So moving on to what went well. Rachel, you're up first.
There were great resources shared about accessibility, especially in our PR this week, that helped us make decisions about which elements to use, and then also things to consider for future design.
Great. Chris?
Yeah, from my perspective, something that I think is going really well is that y'all are having to deal with growing complexity as you scale up and add more features and functionality to the app. And as you have more code to deal with, there's just more things to think about, and merge conflicts can become harder to deal with. So just, I'm happy to see that y'all are stepping up and dealing with it, and that we understand and realize that things will get harder as they go, and that's normal. So
cool. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like the communication has been one of the best aspects about this whole experience for me. And so just to touch back on the task this week, we worked quite, for quite a long time on these video calls, but there were like these natural stopping points basically. And I think that was really important for us to have, instead of continually just like trying and failing and trying and failing. But that struggle, I think, Dee and I talked about this, we feel like we've got a better understanding of date objects because we went through and did it one way and then refactored and did it a different way. And so that helped a lot. The pair thread that Lauren pinned really helped out a lot. Just easier to find in Slack and use. Support from everybody was great. And I think Chris, just going back to the input on the demos and what we needed to really focus on and talk about, has really helped us kind of just like get the point across quickly.
Yeah, agreed. I think demos were great before, and they're even better now.
Yep. So again, like, I feel like everybody's saying this, but the communication has just been really, really awesome. Everybody's more than willing to jump in and help when someone is stuck. So I really think it's just been going well from the beginning. I kind of forgot about the issue threads, like the pair bot threads. I forgot they existed until this week. So getting a chance to use that really helped keep everything in like a centralized location. It was easier to pinpoint where the discussion was going. And so I definitely will be taking more advantage of using the thread in the next weeks. And then with our issue, kind of what Viet was saying, we kind of took the long way in writing out the logic to our code before optimizing it. And it really helped us to better understand working with dates. So I appreciate working, like doing it the long, maybe unnecessarily long way first, but it helped me to be able to wrap my brain around what was actually going on. So
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, well, we had already kind of discussed this a little bit, but I think it's really normal that you get new requirements thrown at you from product manager or other developers or who knows who. And I thought that Brittany and Rachel did a really good job of determining, okay, we need to focus, keep our eye on the prize here. And make the tough decision as to when to just stick to the acceptance criteria and leave the rest for another day. So really good job there.
Yep. Brittany.
Kind of piggybacking on that, I think it did work really well. Rachel and I talked about it a little bit. We got into starting to address that issue with the loading, and then we kind of stopped and reviewed and reflected and said, if this doesn't work out, if we spend so much time on, this amount of time on it, and we're still not able to resolve this, then, maybe it is better to just get the best version we can in that's meeting the criteria. And so I think that was a really, I think that helped to have that conversation and to know that even though it was something we wanted to address, we were both okay kind of tabling it for the moment if we were able to meet the criteria we needed to for the week's issue. And then I also think that, everyone's been really open to communicating about which issue we're interested in before we get on the weekly syncs. And that's been really nice because then I think we come to the meeting already knowing which one we're going to tackle, and it just is, it seems more efficient. So that feels really good. I think that's worked well.
Good idea. Nice. Oh, this is me. Viet and Dee did a really great job of sharing. I love how you used the thread this week. That was really effective. So, because for us as mentors too, we knew exactly, it was easy to find that conversation and pop in. Again, excellent code review that everyone's doing, really wonderful support of each other through challenges, and the same, like I'm just really impressed by people supporting one another and just really feeling like a cohesive team. So nice job. Okay, and then what could be improved? What are some of the things that are standing in our way? Chris.
Yeah, so this one is just for me only, but personally, something that I need to do is take some time, I think, to recalibrate my phone and app settings. I'm just noticing that there's like a lot of pings that are coming through on Slack with the different Collab Lab stuff, and a lot of emails that are coming through. And that is a little bit draining on my energy. So I need to figure out a way to like be more tactical about when I do and don't engage with notifications from this space. But like I said, that's an action item for me to take on. So please continue being exactly the way you are right
now. Brittany.
I didn't write this, but I just want to say, Chris, I'm also struggling with that. We're not struggling, but it's also something I'm aware of and trying to manage. And so I think it is like finding this balance of how do I make sure that I'm staying up to date and I'm getting notifications, but it's not also interfering with my workflow. That's just, I think, a process. So I'm with you there. I think that now that we've talked about it and we know that it's something we can do, it would be really great in the future if something that's sort of outside the scope of our acceptance criteria comes up, we can open a new ticket, focus on the acceptance criteria, and then after we've gotten that in, we can kind of focus on that other feature.
Yeah, feel free always, if it's something that's outside of those AC, you can feel free to open up an issue on our project board. Yep, feel free to do that. Yeah.
Yep. So the ACs are well explained, but it sounds like this week there are some bugs that existed, like the checkbox issue and then the flashing issue on the error message with Brittany and Rachel's issue task this week. And I was thinking maybe we could make a note of that for future cohorts, or and let them know that, you know, even if you meet acceptance criteria, there may be bugs that exist. But I also thought, like, I think the mentors had mentioned this, that we should be checking ahead for future, you know, future tasks to see if these issues are covered. And maybe that's like something that I need to remember to do also.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good idea to maybe make some additional notes, like this does not have to be done for this particular ticket. Cool. And then Dee.
Yeah, so this one is just for me. I feel like I'm kind of late to the party when it comes to the code reviews sometimes. So just kind of prioritizing and being more proactive when it comes to actually reviewing my teammates' code and adding comments and stuff like that. So that was for me, not for anyone else.
Mike?
Well, I think my question here maybe goes well with Dee's, in that, you know, I'm just wondering, feedback from the team, if you'd prefer that mentors kind of wait a little bit longer before doing PR reviews, so we don't take all the all the good reviewable areas. I know for myself, as soon as PR opens, I'm like, yeah, cool, all right, I'm so excited to see what they came up with. So wanted to know if you would appreciate that we wait, or like it prompt. I don't know.
I haven't minded that the mentors dive in, but that's a really good question and a good consideration. I did notice, because with the projects, we've got those columns and it's peer review and then mentor review. And so I was wondering, like, should this be a more separate thing? Personally, I don't really have a preference, but that's a good point to consider.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think the program is technically designed so that participants review first and then mentors jump in. And to Mike's point, it's really impossible to wait, because we get really excited like when your PRs open up and we want to see what you've done.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll try a little harder to hold back, but it is really hard, because we're just excited that there's PR and we just want to see what you did.
And then my other one was just that, like, you know, don't be afraid to use third-party libraries if you need to. You know, for example, with the dates, they're like libraries that make it easier to work with. So sometimes no need to reinvent the wheel. That's it.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Just Brittany and I were wondering this about when, like, if you decide you're going to use a third-party library, should that be a team discussion, like the whole team, or like how is that usually handled?
Yeah, that's a good question. So usually for my team, there's a whole process. Like, if we're going to introduce a new library to do something, we'll do a request for change. Like, this is why we want to use this library. Compared to other libraries, this is what this one does, this is what this one does. We recommend, you know, who's ever preparing this document, we recommend doing this because of this, 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 and this. Here's some examples of how this library works, right? There's a big kind of whole process about it. For dates, typically in some kind of front-end application, you're going to be working with dates a lot. You'll almost always have some kind of library that you're using to manipulate dates. But yeah, it is a good idea. This isn't a super long-term project, but it's a good idea to check in with your teammates to see, you know, if they have any ideas for something, or just say like, we have this idea for using this. How does this sound to you?
Okay, thanks.
That's a really great.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, go for it.
Lauren, is that something, you know, I don't want to ask you to write up a whole bunch of stuff, but is that something you'd mind just sharing a really rough outline of like the questions you ask your team? Okay.
Sure.
Or how you present it. Thanks.
Yep.
I was just going to say that this is a really good question, and I feel like it's one of those areas where it's not typically covered by a lot of the educational materials that people might go through, and it's something that you do kind of have to learn on the job later on. I almost wonder if there's a way for us to incorporate that into the Collab lab for like future groups or something like that. Because like a lot of it's just determined for you, right? Like we just tell you, oh, you're going to write this in React, but like teams have discussions about whether to use React or not. Sometimes teams pick React and it's the wrong tool, you know, like there's a lot of really great learning that could be had there. So yeah, I want to see what Lauren comes up with too.
So next week's learning module, I think that Mike is presenting is on communication, and it's more about kind of written communication that we produce as developers when we're on teams. And so there might be a chance to kind of incorporate that kind of document in there. But yeah, we don't have a specific, like, this is how you evaluate a library, and these are kinds of the things to look at and how you might present it to your team. Cool. So I'm going to summarize some of the action items maybe that we come up with during this time, and I'll post that in Slack for us. But then I'll read my last one. So we've kind of touched on this before, like you all are so good and we get really excited about what you're doing. And it's very easy for us to be like, oh, you should try this, you should try this. But just as for us as mentors, we should be also mindful of the time commitment, and just realize that like technically we only want them to spend 5 hours. So just try to keep that in mind and do what we've been doing, but like keep it clear that this is an extra, this is an add-on. You really don't have to do this. But I really loved how like Rachel and Brittany, that you handled it just perfectly. It was great. Cool. Nice. This is a really good retro. Love it. Nice sharing of ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Move this out of the way. So I'm doing issues 2. Making good time. Let me close out of here. Okay. So for this week, so it sounds like everyone, have you all decided what you'd like to work on for the week? Okay. So who is doing issue 9 this week?
I can't remember the numbers. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
This one is the
filter one.
Yeah, I think that's D and Viet, right?
No, Rachel.
Rachel and D?
Yeah.
You're working together just for the rest of the time now. Okay, so Rachel and D are doing filter. Cool. So let's see. So as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item in the list. The AC are display a text field above the top of the shopping list. As the user types into the field, the list should narrow to display only the items that contain the text the user entered in the filter field. When the field has text in it, the user should be able to tap a UI element, for example, an X button next to the field to clear that field. And the filter text should match any part of the item name. So for example, it should not only match from the start of the string. Like if you had apples on your list and the user typed PLE in the text box, it should still find apples, for example. Okay. Oh, and you're already assigned. Oh my gosh, amazing. Okay. So that's your issue. What questions do you have about this one?
Just a clarification. So filter, or the filter text should match any part, like when you said Apple, it just has to be like PLE. So in like the letters are touching each other. Right.
Or if you type, like if you just start typing and you hit A,
Then
every item in the list that has an A in there should still be on that list.
Okay.
Should the filtering happen as they are typing it in, or should there be a button to click to like apply the filter?
It should happen while you're typing. Yep, good question. So as you're typing, it should filter down. And then, yep, and then again, there'll be some kind of clearing button that when you click it, it just zeroes out what's in the text box, and then your list should go back to full list. Okie doke. Any other questions about this one? For now, anyway. Okie dokie. All right, so that is Rachel and Dee. Oh boy. Okay, so this is a hard one. This to me is the harder one. So we'll see. I mean, everyone is different, right? But this to me is a little bit, this one scares me more. Okay. As an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time my purchase is recorded in the database, so the app can learn how often I buy different items. This is like the smart shopping list, kind of the core functionality. So for the AC, when a purchase is recorded, the estimated number of days until the next purchase date should be calculated and recorded in the database. So we'll take advantage of that later, but so let's look actually at that. What is it called? Estimates.js. See if I can do the right thing. How do I do fancy filtering? Isn't it Command T or something? Nope. How do I do fancy filtering in GitHub? Control T?
I didn't know there was fancy filtering.
It's like,
I don't even know what that is.
there's like a cool filter that you can just, that's fine, I'll find it.
You mean go to file? That'll
Yeah.
kind of do a fuzzy find for you. Yeah, it's that button right there.
Which one?
To the left of the green button. And then one more to the left.
Go to file, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Oh yeah, thanks. All right, so it's an estimates.js. This is the key to understanding the issue that you're working on, Brittany and Viet. So Andrew wrote this algorithm, and there are good comments in here about what each of those values that this function takes in means. So we have a last estimate value, and that's the last estimated purchase interval. So for example, you know, when you're buying a shopping list item and you have to click 7, 14, or 30 days, that's that value. Latest interval is the number of days between the most recent and previous purchases. So from this, it seems like you need to record like maybe an array of all of the times that you purchase that particular item or something like that. So latest interval is like the number of days between the most recent and previous purchases. And the number of purchases value is the total number of purchases for that item. So again, that seems like a value that we need to keep track of. How many times have I purchased this particular item? Okay, so this is the heart and soul of this issue. So I would spend a lot of time understanding what each of these values is and like where those values come from. How do we get those values? So what questions, right now, what questions do you have about this one?
I feel like you just gave us a big banner. You were like, look at this. So that makes it really clear, like, this is where to start. This is what to like really focus on.
Yeah, this is really the center of this issue. Like, what does this function mean? What are these 3 things that I need to pass into this function? And then, I mean, the other part of it is just updating that field in the database, and you already have on the checkbox, like when you check it, it already does an update. So we just had to update another field.
Sounds like, and I don't know if this is true, but we might also be adding some fields.
Yeah, I think so. I think different groups have handled it different ways, but I think that there are different fields in an item that will be useful. Like the number of purchases seems like it would probably be a useful field to keep track of. It seems like the, you know, right now when you click on the checkbox, it records the purchase date, right? Yet indeed, that's what you did this week. It records that purchase date. I think that you're going to need to keep track of purchase dates, plural.
Okay.
So every time you purchase that particular item, you need to keep track of that date and not just overwrite what's there. There may be, I mean, just to think about it, there may be other ways to think about it and to accomplish the same thing. I'm confident there's more than one way to accomplish the same thing, but that's just sort of what's jumping in my mind here. That's not the one I wanted to look at. Oh, I'm lost now. Let's go back to projects. And here we are. Other questions before we say goodnight? Good late afternoon.
Yeah. So we're good to merge to main, right? D and I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yep. For sure. And then, yeah, I think we're good. Wonderful. Okay, wonderful work this week, everyone. I thought retro was really fantastic. That was one of the best retros I think that I've had at Collab Lab. So good sharing, good feedback for everyone. And great work. Great work, everybody. Have a wonderful week. I will post all of the things in Slack soon enough. But get some rest, drink some water, and take care. And we will see you on Slack.
Cool.
Take
Bye,
care.
all.
Good job. Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thanks.